why it hasn't been released. It's your call for transparency among the Calgary Police Service, and I know a lot of people would like to see that video and exactly what happened. We also understand the dash cam video was turned off for a period of time. We'd like to know if you can confirm that for us. So
first part of the question, as soon as we turn the investigation over to ASIRT, all evidence becomes part of the criminal investigation. So that, as you heard Ms. Houston say, all that evidence is now before the courts. That is simply a matter of a court record at this point. As soon as the court matter is concluded, then that'll become publicly available, likely.
Can we just get your general reaction to learning that 3 of your officers have been charged criminally?
You know what? I think as the chief, it's probably it's a most disappointing time to see one of your members or any of your members having to go through this or have done something that put them exposed to criminal courts. But it's, you know what? It's, as I said before, accountability is incredibly important, and through all the processes, this is probably one of the highest levels of accountability an officer will experience, is having to stand in court and be judged in courts.
I know you can't speak to what is actually in the video, what it depicts, but can you give us your reaction, how you felt when you viewed the video?
I watched the video just a few weeks ago, and as soon as we saw it, it went to ASIRT. So it's not representative of policing. It's not representative of the kind of policing that we'd expect in the city. So, and it raised an enormous amount of questions about what happened there, and it went away for investigations.
Can you say if that video was turned off, though, at one period of time?
That's one of the, you know, as you watch the video, there's lots to be learned there. So we just got the file back from ASIRT. The idea that the camera could have been turned off is something we're exploring. So we'll let that, you know, the process will be now. All this evidence about the actual substantive investigations going forward, I'll look at everything after that, including behaviors or practices of the organization that may have sort of contributed to this. So that's what you're asking, is something I've seen as well, and I'm aware of it, and I'm something I'll look into.
Does this make you really think about the police cameras? Does this make you really think about the importance of
sorry, say again, Jamie?
Does this make you really, you know, stop and think about the importance of body cameras and having those dash cameras?
Well, it certainly shows the critical importance of absolute transparency and accountability. So these dash cam videos, had it been the video camera of even of a passerby, are very, very important for the ability to ensure ourselves and the public that we are being held to account when things go on. So it is an opportunity to use this era of digital media to get more accurate with what's going on, and so we can learn things. You know, like, I know I've told you this before, but our officers work incredibly hard every day in amongst the most difficult of circumstances, and these sort of things are not reflective of what they do. When it happens, I'd like to know about it immediately so we can address it immediately, and this one has been addressed. I mean, this is the turnaround time from ASIRT on this one is terrific. I mean, they took it seriously from the beginning. They've turned this around within just a few weeks, and at least I can say to the public that we became aware of it, and it's now being dealt with in the most serious of fashions.
But doesn't it scare you if that video hadn't come out, then you would be having these officers on the street again?
We're challenged with that all the time. The things that we learn later through the presence now of digital evidence, always ask the question in retrospect, what didn't we know before? Again, I can tell you, I've been policing here for 30 years, and this is not reflective of my experience in policing. So it's not like this is, I believe this is indicative of a history of behavior, but it's something that had to be addressed, and it's important the public know that it is going to be addressed.
To your knowledge, have any of these police officers been investigated before or under investigation?
Now, I look at everything with them now. So these officers are towards this matter. So this matter is now something that the courts will look at. I look at all their performance assessments, their history in terms of internal investigations, any indications of our early intervention system that may have flagged these things. I'll look at all of our practices that should have or could have alarmed us to potential behaviors like this.
Have any of those things been looked into, early intervention, disciplinary action that might have happened?
Just in the early days of looking at it now, so again, we just got this briefing a couple days ago, so we're just sort of working through some of that now.
So far, no, nothing?
I'm looking at it now, so there's always factors, and there's a lot of information to look at, but I want to make sure, and I think the most important thing for policing in this current context we are in is to make sure that, you know, you have an officer or officers who are alleged to have done something and are being held to account. The real important thing for me and our leadership team is to understand what was our role in this. Do we have policies or practices or any other features of the organization that we could have identified this with earlier. Are there changes we have to make? Are there leadership issues? Are there anything else we could do to accept our level of responsibility for this as well? So these are the things I'll look at here almost instantly.
Your officer's written accounts contradict the video, and you weren't aware of the video's existence at first. So how can the public be expected to trust police records?
You know what? Again, I'll say when these things happen like this, it's not we weren't aware of the video. It just took some time before, from the original context of this, for our investigators to actually look through the details and find the video. The video was released, and we looked at it. There was obviously a disconnect between what we believed happened and what this video was showing. So, to that point, I would tell all Calgarians that as soon as you see this kind of discrepancy, it is so far away from professional and reasonable policing that we said this has to go away for investigation. So I would tell anybody the trust is born in the fact that the service finds its integrity and its ethics is something that we hold to the highest account. And if someone sort of assaults that, then we will deal with it instantly.
Do you agree with ASIRT's charge that the lying is the more serious charge here? And what's your reaction to this in terms of the charges laid?
Well, the lying is the allegations, at least of the deceit, is an incredibly serious affront to our oath of allegiance. So when you take an oath, you have this duty to police in a fair and objective way. So when every time you have an allegation that says that you have not done that, that you have done something to offend the office that you hold, it really speaks to the core of policing. So it is serious. I think to say it's more serious or less serious than any other allegations is probably not. You know, they're all very serious, and they're all things that need to be judged later in court.
So what now? Are these officers still on desk duty? What's going on now?
Two of the officers initially had been relieved from duty, so now we have 3 officers relieved from duty, and one had been on, one of the officers that was originally named had been on some administrative role. So the officer who is not charged and who is deemed to be a witness officer will likely just be returned to duty, but the others remain relieved from duty, and I'll be reviewing their status in the days and weeks to come.
My understanding is that the victim originally didn't make a complaint or anything like that. Are you guys at all worried that he was threatened or intimidated not to come forward after he was allegedly beaten up?
I haven't seen any indication of any sort of coercion to the witness at all. I think, again, we saw it, the service saw it, we looked at it and realized this is something that didn't need this person to come forward. We came forward with it. I don't say that, there's no patting on the back here. That's just something is our absolute responsibility when we see these things, our duty to make sure these are investigated and dealt with, because it's not, you know, it's not the way anybody needs to be treated for any circumstance. We have a strong duty of care to everybody we deal with, and anybody we arrest for any situation, and that's not reflective of that duty of care at all.
So are you saying, though, that you're not aware that one of the officers involved was kicked out of a unit for inappropriate behavior?
Oh, I have some history with, like, some understanding of our long-term history with people, but I think, generally speaking, what we wouldn't do in a public event is talk about what are arguably human resource issues. I will look at all their past. I'll look at everything from their performance assessments to their PSR histories through their any other sort of documentation or interaction we have with these people to start understanding, did we do enough? Did we, you know, if we didn't do enough, did we put the public in harm's way or a member in harm's way if we didn't do more than we could or enough to predict something like this might have happened. So that's what any police agency or any organization's responsibility is, to say, did you do something or could you have done something to prevent this? And that's something I'll be soberly looking at. So.
Once you reach a decision on the status, will you be releasing that, or how does that fall in line with human resource policy?
We generally don't sort of openly discuss our human resource policies as out of a sense of privacy. Remember, these people are there's no doubt this is very serious, and what I've seen is very disappointing, but they still have their day in court. There's still a presumption of innocence that goes to these members as well, so they have to have that ability to be heard and be before a judge and tell their story, so I don't sort of want to, certainly I'm not here to convict them. So.
How does this feel coming forward under your watch? You know, we've had a police officer's dealings with a lot of things. It feels like every week there's something new that's coming out.
You know what? It's a good question. I'd say this, is that my responsibility to the community is to make sure that when issues like this occur in policing, that they are dealt with up front and they're dealt with candidly and openly. To the organization, it's also my opportunity to say to them that I hold very dearly the values and the merits of policing and what our people do every day. But when things like this happen that are outside of the expectation of policing. It offends them too. It offends our members when this goes on. So it's an ability to address them as well. So is it difficult? Yes. Is it, it's not, this certainly is not my best day, but it's important for the health of policing moving forward.
We're hearing kind of a different tune from you right now in terms of how HR is going to handle this, in terms of you telling the public if they'll be kept on or things like that. When it was the Anthony Braille case, you condemned him on right there, right now, as you are now. What's different about this situation from that one? He still hasn't had his day in court.
They did have their day in court already in some of those. So I mean, I think again you have to be very careful to not interfere with the presumption of innocence. So this is a step of accountability that says, like what we do for everybody, we'd say, look, this happened, and there are mechanisms for us which to do this, is either through performance management, through the professional standard side, or through criminal investigation. This one met the threshold of a criminal investigation, and certainly met the threshold of the need to put it before the courts. So I still would prefer that allow that process to occur. The other parts of this, the idea about their status in the workplace, I think there is an obligation to tell the public that these people won't be on the street. There won't be people you'll be dealing with. I believe I have an obligation to ensure that Calgarians can be rest assured that they won't be seeing these officers while this process is going on. That's not to convict them, but that's to make sure that I see enough in this that I don't believe that would be appropriate to have them out there. So their status long term will be an HR piece. We will look at them. There's a process to go through. We have a police act, and we have policies and procedures that we go through to make sure that we're fair and reasonable to people. Even those people who are charged criminally deserve the ability to be treated fairly and reasonably through this process. So I'll do that as we move along, but it should not mitigate the idea of how serious this is.
But what do you say to Calgarians when there is a string of incidents, charges of investigations, and now here we are again today? I mean, what do you say to Calgarians? What do you say how do you explain all of this?
I would say that policing is, we're policing in a difficult time. Again, I would say as clearly as I can that Calgarians enjoy a very high level of policing. But when these things happen, when there's allegations of misconduct or there's serious matters like this happen, what I'd say to Calgarians is I will never waver from the idea that there will be high accountability for these kind of behaviors. Accountability offers our employees and our members the ability to learn from things, the ability to improve themselves as officers, but it also tells the community that if something happens, that I will not walk away from it, we will not cover it up, we won't sort of turn our heads, we'll be honest and steadfast and deal with these. And that's why we're here today, because we are dealing with this.
But how do you explain the fact there's been so many of these in the last 12 to 18 months?
You know what? There's not a particular nexus from one to the other. I mean, there's been a series of issues, but there's not a particular pattern or nexus. What we talk to our senior management team about continually is our ability to engage our employees, to address issues like this, to become aware of any patterns of behaviors that go on that we could get in front of to stop this from occurring. But you know what? We're policing at a very busy and complex time. We have a lot of issues in the workplace, and our members exhaustively go out there to do everything they can. When it goes wrong, we will hold them to account.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to know, do you know if any of the officers had any dealings with Prince before this had happened?
You know, I have no information at all to say that they are even aware of who the operator of the vehicle was when this stop happened. So there's no particular reason to believe they knew of him or anything about him.
How is the body cam? Are you moving forward with that now?
Yeah, the body cam process, we've had this sort of unfortunate sort of issue with our current models that have had been returned, so we are unfortunately back in the position now to go through our new procurement process. So, and you can appreciate in our city system we'll have to follow a procurement process. It'll be delayed likely into the early new year before the new ones come out, but I just could not put out a product that was both a evidence risk and a officer safety risk, so we decided to move forward with a new procurement.